Hey guys, I'm just going to talk about line management today, and there's a couple of different methods that you can utilize to help you manage the line better, whether that is if you're dry fly fishing or if you're nymphing. You can use these different methods to help with line management and also with presenting a better drag-free drift when you're presenting your flies to the trout. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to talk about is called an upstream mend. So essentially what that is, as soon as my fly line ends, or as soon as my fly lands in the water, I'm going to move the fly line upstream of that fly. And I can use the same thing if I'm fishing with indicators. So if I'm doing indicator nymphing, I'm going to move my fly line upstream of the indicator just so I can have a longer natural drift without, because what happens when the fly line is downstream of the indicator or your dry fly, it is going to start to drag your flies, and that's going to result in an unnatural presentation of your flies. So again, the upstream end is simply you lift up your rod and move the fly line upstream of your dry fly or indicator, whatever that may be. The other line management method is the opposite of the upstream end. So sometimes the currents there will be conflicting currents, and you want to be able to have that natural presentation, and sometimes you can't do that with an upstream end. You have to do a downstream end. So it's just an opposite thing of the upstream end, but it also allows you to have a natural drift before the current starts dragging your fly line and creating that unnatural presentation. The third option that you can do is, and you can utilize this with nymphing or dry fly fishing. A lot of people associate high sticking with only nymphing. However, when you're fishing dry flies, you can do the same thing, and that's simply you're lifting up the fly line out of the water and just letting that monofilament sit in the water, and that way that fly line is not catching the current and not creating that unnatural drift and the presentation of those flies. So again, it's simply, and you can only do that when the casts are short. Obviously when the casts are long and you lift up your rod, you're not going to be able to lift up all the fly line out of the water. But when you are drifting from a boat, most of the time you're not required to do those 70-80 feet casts, so you can just lift up your rod and watch your nymph or your dry fly that way, so you're not creating that drag. So those are the three methods. Another method for managing your fly line is when you're casting upstream to the rising fish or downstream. So, and you can use this the same thing for nymphing or dry fly fishing. So for example, we talked about in the casting lessons, you can use the parachute cast or the serpentine cast to have that natural presentation by performing those casts, and then that fly line is there's gonna be slack fly line in the water, which is gonna allow for that dry fly to drift naturally. So essentially, you can do the parachute cast where you stop high and then let those flies land in the water, or you can do the serpentine cast where you just shake out the slack and then there's slack line in the water already. Another important point with the parachute cast, so when you do your parachute cast and you stop high, and then as the fly is drifting downstream, you're going to lower your rod so you can have that long presentation of the flies. So that's the downstream presentation. If you want to present your fly upstream, you have to be able to strip that line in fast as it's coming towards you. So for example, if there is fish rising upstream of me, all I'm going to do, so I'm going to cast out upstream to that trout where it is, and I'm going to strip that fly line in as it's coming towards me. Because if I don't do that, and I'm going to have all that slack line in the water, and a trout takes my fly, by the time I set it, I'm not going to be able to create any movement in my fly that is required to hook the trout and land the fish that way. So you really have to watch your fly line, and as it's coming towards you, you're going to be stripping it in so you're staying in contact with those flies, and you're not creating too much slack in the water that is going to result in an ineffective hook set. So that's pretty much all we got for you guys for today for managing your fly lines. Thank you.